Hey, this is Kim. I'm here at Mind Over Matter Meditation Center in Holliston, Mass, and this is our Friday forecast. So today is Friday, February 18th, and it's the day that the sun moves out of the sign of Aquarius and into the sign of Pisces. So it's the last solar cycle for the solar year before the sun moves into Aries on the spring equinox of March 20th, 2022. And so this is the last month of winter. This is the coming to the end, the closure of a season. It's the closure of a solar cycle. There's a lot of closure. There's a lot of ending feelings. And I think it couples with the fact that there's a lot of energy around sort of an ending theme in general, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So this week we had the full moon on Wednesday, the 16th, and Wednesday was a really potent day, full moon aside, but the moon itself, will start there. So it's the third quarter moon phase. So it's where the moon hits its peak of light before it wanes and starts moving into the full moon, or the absence of the light of the moon, 2 weeks from now. So next Wednesday will be the fourth quarter moon, because it's that last sort of slice of the moon before we move into that new moon the following week and start a whole new lunar cycle all over again, which is how things just sort of continue in time. And we go through these 28-day cycles every month, and all the energy, as you've seen at this point, is different from week to week. So if you've been watching these, following these, even as we go forward, and the moon always does the same thing every week, it's always in a different place. And so it's always representing something different in our lives, which over time you'll start to see how that plays out. So the full moon in itself, it is about reflecting on accomplishments. So we talked last week about the accomplishments based on the seeds of intention that were planted at the new moon a few weeks back. And so now we're looking at what accomplishments we have made. How far have we come? Did we reach our goals? Did we manifest the things that we wanted to manifest or were hoping to manifest? And so we can really sit back and let our work shine and really appreciate. And the light of the full moon helps to look at the accomplishments that maybe seemed a little smaller or a little bit less significant, but really in the bigger picture, it's all the little things really do impact us in ways that are much more important than we may notice in the moment. And so the other thing that it can reflect is what's missing or what hasn't happened. And that's not always easy to look at. That's not always as comfortable to sit with, because it doesn't force us to, but it asks us to look at where we are pinching ourselves off, where we are out of alignment with ourselves, where did we block the manifestation, or what's blocking what's being manifested. And sometimes it can bring to light the blocking as opposed to the manifestation. And again, it's not about trying to make you angry or set you into a bad mood. It's about helping you move into the place that you want to be with full knowledge. So it's just helping you gain whatever wisdom and insight that you need, so that as you go through the next cycle, and you're looking at this place again a month out with the next full moon, on how you can get more lined up and closer to the accomplishments and things that you were looking to do. And so I have recently acquired, I love card decks. I think they're great. I love tools of divination. And so tools of divination basically are just ways that we can have conversations with energy. I don't know how else to say it. That's really just the best way, is to take non-physical and bring it into some sort of container that we can then assimilate and digest the information and sort of take it in ways that can help us move forward. So I recently acquired this deck, Moonology, which is perfect. It's by Yasmin Boland. You can find these online or your local book, or I'll say New Age. I'm not a fan of the term, but most people understand what a New Age shop is. And so I'll just say that for the sake of this. And this morning I pulled the deck out and I was shuffling the cards, And the card I pulled is actually the blue moon, which is not taking place this month. It's when there's 2 full moons in one calendar month. And we'll talk about that a little bit further down the road as we get closer to a blue moon. But the message of it is to believe in the impossible. And this really highlights where we are right now, is to believe in the impossible. When we're looking around at evidence of the things that we wanted to bring into the world, and we are focused on the absence of, or what is missing. Again, this full moon is going to highlight what's there or what's not. And so it's moving out of the thought pattern that you need to see something in order to believe it, which there's a lot of that. We've had a lot of that these last 2 years. Let's wait to see what happens before we know what to believe. What happens is we give away our power to somebody else's decision making around what things look like. And when we're disempowered, or we're giving other people our power, we put a lot of expectation into other people to do the right thing with our thoughts and feelings, when really the responsibility is squarely and solely on ourselves. And so believing in the impossible, and everything is possible. It's what's perceived as impossible, or what's perceived as more difficult. Everything is difficult until it becomes familiar. It's just how we learn. It's how we grow. It's not meant to be a deterrent. It's sort of like a call, like a little call. We have the hero's journey that sort of moves us in bigger patterns through our lives. And then we have these smaller calls of action in any given moment to just challenge the way that we're looking at something, or the way that we believe something. And so what we're really being asked to do is to believe in the unseen, is to believe in things even though there isn't a material evidence of it yet. Because what that does is it changes our vibration. So law of attraction completely works on the principle of you receive that in what you put out. So if you are giving off a vibration, or you're sending out a signal that says, I don't believe that that's going to happen for me, I don't believe that thing is going to come into my life, it's not going to come into your life because you're, one, not in a receiving mode for it, simply by the fact that you think it's not going to happen. And two, you're broadcasting a signal of what's lacking. And so you're going to just see more lack. If you want to start seeing the things manifesting in your life that you know are possible in some way because you feel like you want these things to be true. We generally don't want things that aren't good for us. We may gravitate towards things that aren't good for us. We may get distracted by things that aren't good for us. But deep down, we don't really want what isn't good for our mind, our body, our spirit, that isn't going to put us into greater alignment with that non-physical part of ourselves that really is still so connected to all of our possibility that it doesn't recognize impossible. It only recognizes the blocks that we continue to put in the way of what we're trying to make happen. And that can even be, my experience of that has been on the physical journey. And so trying to work with my belief system about the things that I'm putting in my body and how they make me feel, and then seeing where I get distracted from that and drawn towards things that are less good for putting into my body. And then how does that make me feel? And all those little nuances in between. So anyway, the other thing that this is all bringing up, the energy of the moon this week and this period of time in general, is about relationships. Not just because Valentine's Day was this past week, although I think that that is the perfect kickoff for the energy that we're really in this moment. And relationships are definitely in the hot seat. And so the moon, being our emotional state, works with all the other sort of interplanetary action going on that also affects the way that we think, act, behave, etc. And so the book most people are familiar with, or some people are familiar with, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of people have heard of the Mars and Venus books about men and women. So in lots of different contexts, men and women have been related to Mars and Venus, right? So Mars representing male energy and Venus representing feminine energy or female energy. Now we can work this into ourselves, not even looking at the people around us or outside of us, whether you identify as male or female. All of us have masculine and feminine energy. We all identify with both energies because that is the oneness of all of us, is that we have masculine energy, we have feminine energy, we have sun energy, we have moon energy, we have yin energy, we have yang energy. That's just who we are as people. And so the planets that represent that, like I said, are Mars and Venus. And right now, so not only, like I said, Wednesday was not only the full moon, it was also the second of 3 alignments happening with Mars and Venus. And so the first one took place back last November. And so the second one was this past Wednesday. And the third one is in March, on March 6th, I believe. And so they're interesting in the sense that relationships are affected by these energies because of the way that we feel about our relationship to them. And of course, everybody's birth chart looks different. So the way that individual people relate to certain planetary action is always based on your blueprint, your energetic blueprint of what the stars look like at the time that you were born. However, there is a sort of standardized set of rules that work with the energy of the planets, such as the Mars energy representing the sort of masculinity and the Venus energy representing feminine energy. And so they're in this position where they're together. Now, back in November, it was about the feminine energy sort of overtaking the male energy. And I think we've seen that a lot. I've noticed a lot more women's movements, a lot more women just being represented in different ways. We've seen it actually over the past year probably, but really all of a sudden this real push of femininity. Now back in November also, Venus was moving, I believe, into retrograde, which it recently came out of retrograde. So there was just a lot around feminine energy. This particular week, it's shifted. And so it's more about the masculine energy trying to dominate the feminine energy. And so you may be seeing this in your relationships, whether it's parental, whether it's your kids, whether it's your significant other, or whether, again, it's within yourself, because we all identify with both of these energies. So just to put that out there, if you're having any of these experiences, know that it is just, again, us being little barometers, picking up on everything else that's going on around us in the sky. What's interesting too is, again, going back to card decks. I love Esther and Jerry Hicks, or maybe you're familiar with Abraham Hicks, the work of Abraham Hicks. And so again, there's this card deck of Getting in the Vortex, which is all about the place where we came from and where all the things that we ever want to manifest in our lives exists energetically until we get into that receiving mode or send out the right signal to be in alignment with what it is we're looking for. And so I chose from this deck this morning, and the card I got was, I can look for things I appreciate in relationships. So just like the believing in the impossible with the moon was perfect for this week of really trying to believe in the things that we're capable of bringing to fruition, even if we can't see evidence of it, we can do it. This whole idea of what's going on with Mars and Venus and what we may be seeing in relationships was just sort of validated in the card that I pulled out regarding things that we appreciate in relationships. And I think that this is so important, because even in the relationships that we have that feel more difficult or toxic or reflect the things that we don't want, there's still a gift in that. There's an absolute gift in recognizing behavior that you don't want to emanate. There's appreciation in everything. There's a thank you in every moment, in every experience, in every interaction that we have with people really is a gift. And so this whole Mars Venus working so the interesting part about all of this, why it's even important, why am I even bringing this up? One, because relationships are incredibly important, and we've been sort of made to feel like love relationships sort of take a back seat sometimes, and that's really not their purpose. They have their own purpose in our lives, right? And so understanding the nature of our relationships and that they're important and that they have value can just sometimes give people a little bit more permission to spend time thinking about their relationships, as opposed to sort of how easy it can be sometimes to take for granted the people in our lives because we're so distracted. Again, distraction into things that don't matter as much, or distraction away from the importance of love. And again, like I've mentioned in one of the previous videos, we're working up this energetic ladder where this year we're really in our solar plexus. We're really about coming out, and we're moving into next year into that heart energy. And so this full moon period is really asking people to let it go. Anything that's not serving you emotionally and in your relationships, let it go. Not just let it go, drop it like it's hot. You don't need it. You don't need it going forward. This whole sort of end cycle is also coming. So when we come into March, and we're at this third alignment of Mars and Venus, and that sort of shifting energy of male to female, female to male, one power sort of trying to overthrow the other. It's going to happen at a time where Pluto, this little tiny planet, way out. Some people, the poor little thing, have even had the audacity to say it's not a planet. I will always consider Pluto a planet. That's just my take. And the energy in the way that we cycle with it, it's in our greater orbit. So how can it not affect us? That's just the way I feel about it. But Pluto, because it's so far away, it's transit. So transiting is movement, just like transportation. And so the signs, the zodiac signs that are sitting up in the sky, things transit within these signs. And when it's retrograde, it appears to be going backwards. And when it's transiting, it's moving forward. So it's this ebb and flow in this beautiful dance of the universe, the macrocosm and microcosm, and that whole relation to our bodies, and the fact that we're, made of this stuff that the stars are made of, really just solidifies that connection. Anyway, so Pluto, when it has been moving through or transiting through Capricorn, and so for like 15 plus years, because it's further away, it takes longer to sort of move its way through the signs. When this last alignment in March on the 6th takes place between Mars and Venus, Pluto will be leaving Capricorn and moving into Aquarius. It is literally like the final stand. It is significant in the sense of this push-pull, this wrestling match for power, domination, all of it. It's sort of coming to an energetic end. And so the nice part with that is usually when things end, there's some relief. It also can bring a new set of circumstances. And so I think that that's what has really messed with people the last couple of years, is that every time people were told, or made to feel, or thought, or made to think, or encouraged to think, however it translates for you, that when this thing happens externally, everything's going to be better, or there's going to be this big sort of collective sigh of relief. People have been holding their breath, back to the body, back to the breath. People have been collectively holding their breath for a while. I'm sure you can relate to this. It can lead to headaches. It can lead to neck tension. It can lead to fatigue. It can lead to a myriad of physical manifestations, which is why I am so drawn to coming back to the breath as the most important thing that you can do to help yourself stay and get centered, or get centered and then stay centered, really. So we've been collectively holding our breath in these sort of waves where it says, and then, ooh, and then, and sort of, all over the place. Shock, surprise. There's been a lot of shock and surprise. Our nervous systems have really been put through the ringer. And so when So if Capricorn is this very solid, very rule keeper, very boundary, very, yeah, have you done this? How did you do it? Did you do well? Do you have any sort of accomplishment or a thing to show how well you did, or marks? It can be grades in school or things of that nature. That sort of the marks and measures of how well or unwell you're doing in your life. And so, whether you even understand any of this, you may have been feeling like, wow, I'm really in this place of sort of a very heavy self-critical state of not feeling enough. We go through periods of that, but right now it may feel exasperated. Again, the full moon is really highlighting the stuff that's going on. So it's been kind of an intense week, and that's okay, because intensity also can mean passion. And so find what you're passionate about. If you find that you're having intense feelings as a response to the things that are sort of going on around you, find the things that you are equally as passionate about in a positive way and direct that energy there. Whether it's playing music, whether it's some creativity, let your creativity flow, because when creativity flows, it is one of the quickest ways to adjust your energy and just put you in a better feeling state. And when you're in a better feeling state, you can then find a better feeling thought, which again, Esther and Jerry Hicks, the work of Abraham Hicks, is all about shifting from a negative feeling thought into a better feeling thought. And through my own practice and experience with this, I know it works, which is why I really like sharing that concept with people, because it can switch you on a dime from watching yourself sort of start to follow a thought pattern. And especially if it's one that you've been down before and you don't like where you end up, you can circumvent that. It's like being in a car, and if you're on sort of autopilot and you're driving and you meant to go this way, but you went that way, you can stop, you can turn, you can find a place to U-turn, make a 3-point turn, whatever, and find the better way to get to where it is that you're trying to go. You can do the same thing physically, you can do the same thing emotionally and mentally, just by changing to a better feeling thought. And so again, this sort of ending feeling of where we're at. And the reason I keep coming back to this is because right now, over the next few weeks, we have a very rare opportunity. Things that don't happen a lot in our lives, energetically supported, are like rare opportunities to get second chances with certain things that you may not have thought you were going to have a second chance for, or even realize the second chance, was possible, or that you even wanted a second chance at something until the possibility of doing something differently and potentially better comes along. And so we have this period of time between now and March 6th, where if you feel like you're on the wrong course, pause, change course. Really start to let go, that highlighting of what's not working, what's not serving, and letting go. Don't sit there and rationalize why you should or shouldn't, or spend all of the time in the world thinking about the possibilities. This was one of the greatest things that was recently introduced to me as a concept, because I have always been taught to believe and to think that being diplomatic about everything means that you have to mentally chew on all of the aspects on every side of the coin in order to make a fair and equitable decision about something. And all that does, more often than not, is introduces more resistance into a situation that you were already having some resistance to. And so you don't need to do that. If you recognize that something isn't working, like I said, done. Let it go. You don't need permission from anybody outside of you. Again, you're the only one that goes to bed at night with the decisions that you make on any given day. So really fine tune that. What are the decisions that you've been making lately? How do they make you feel? What decisions do you wish that you were making, but aren't really sure how to shift from your thinking now to what the thought process may be to put you in that better place? So this long mission that Pluto has been on moving through Capricorn is kind of coming to an end, and it's tallying up. And you may be seeing that in your relationships. Like I said, if there's a lot of scorekeeping going on, if there's a lot of back and forth, try to detach yourself from the interpersonal drama and bring it back to yourself and figure out what is the conflict for you that is most likely being projected into your relationship, that we then often finger point and blame the other person for bringing out in us, when really it was a whole bunch of other circumstances and factors that brought things to light. And often in that time of conflict, you can find that sweet spot. And I'm not saying that you should look for conflict to find the sweet spot, but if you find yourself in conflict, trust that there's a reason for it and that it's serving a purpose. Going back to believe in the impossible. Maybe there are people in your life that just feel like they're impossible to deal with. It's just learning a new way to relate to people or even to yourself. So I know that we went a little bit further and a little bit longer in this video, but I just felt like there were some points that were really, really important right now for people to sort of hear maybe 2 or 3 times over. So it gives you a chance to have those aha moments of where they line up in your life, what they relate to, or how they can just help you moving forward. You're getting this opportunity to really get a second chance at moving forward and creating a life that is richer and more fulfilling and has more moments of satisfaction. It's not about being satisfied once and being done. It is about constantly creating new things to be satisfied with and new dreams to sort of chase and new excitement and new creativity. But if you're stuck in old patterns and this full moon has really highlighted for you what's missing, try not to focus on what's missing and try to align yourself with being in more of a receiving mode for what it is that you want to bring in. Like if you're tuning your car radio and you lose reception and you're out of an area where you can't receive the signal that you're looking for anymore, you can either turn the radio off and go neutral, or you can try to find a new signal and fine tune your radio until you hear that song that goes, okay, that's great. That makes me feel better than the silence or the static. And there's a lot of static right now. So try to fine tune your radios, try to get out of that staticky state, try to clear up your signal, try to clear up your communication, try to just clear up your intention and your own inner being, because all of your relationships and everything around you will only benefit from you being a more precise bringer of what you're here to put forth into the world. The world needs you. The world needs you. I'm talking to you to be everything that you are here to be. The beautiful, light, loving, nurturing, wonderful soul that you are. So thank you again for joining me this week. I hope you're enjoying these videos. If you are, feel free to like or subscribe. Again, however the whole YouTube thing goes, I just want these messages to be able to continue to reach as many people that need to hear them as possible. So next week, we'll be looking at sort of the last quarter moon phase of the cycle. So between now and then, just be gentle, with yourself, gentle with each other. And if you have any questions, leave comments. I'll go through, read them, reach out. We can have additional conversations. Feel free to find me. It's mindovermattermeditationcenter.com. And have a beautiful and wonderful full moon weekend. Love you all.